Alright, what's up guys? This is Luke with Central Pennsylvania Reviews, or Retro Tech Rewind, and today we're going to do a little mod that I've been wanting to do, and it's going to be adding component video to a Sega Genesis. Now this is a Model 1, this is the high definition graphics model, and as you can see, I got quite a few mods on the back of this already. I modded it for just standard composite video, stereo audio. Over here we got S-Video and a region switch. So you can see I already mapped out right here where I'm going to put the jacks for the component video. The reason I'm putting them over here and not just along the back is because I still want to be able to use this guy, which is the power base converter that only fits on the Model 1 Genesis. As you can see, when that's placed on there, you don't really have a whole lot of room anywhere else. That's why I specifically put these guys right here. So I'm going to put the component jacks right about here. But yeah, this guy is already modded, so I'm not really too concerned about aesthetics or anything like that as far as the back end goes, because you're not really going to be able to see it too much from the back anyway. And besides, I want component video, so what are you going to do? So let's take that out and set it aside here. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to need some kind of encoder board. Long story short, it's a RGB to component board. It uses a specific encoder here and a series of resistors, transistors, all that kind of fun stuff. So I had it made by OshPark, OSHPark.com. They do circuit board manufacturing, I guess, for little projects that you might have, so definitely check them out if that's something that you're into. So we're going to go ahead, and first thing you're going to need to do is take all 6 screws out. You can see here I already took them out and I have them set aside in my little magnetic dish. I highly recommend picking one of these up if you haven't already. So you take that out, and you're going to want to be careful because there's going to be this little wire here, and that's connected to the power LED. You can kind of see the little leads hanging off of that. You want to, usually they're bent up to either side, so you'll want to pull them straight and just pull the connector off. And inside you'll see I already have wired up my composite video and stereo audio jacks, and as well as the wires for my region switch right here, going that way. These wires were done at the factory, I guess. They're just little jumper wires from this, what is this? 256, yeah, that's a RAM chip. So I'm going to end up putting this encoder board over here, and I put a little bit of electrical tape down here just to kind of insulate it, so that way if the board's sitting on there, it's not going to short out to ground. There's just enough space in there. I might use like some hot glue, or just if the wires will hold it down, we'll be safe there. So it's not going to get in the way of anything, and we should be all right. So once you have this apart, you're going to want to take all of the other screws out. There's a whole bunch of screws all around here. Make sure you get the 2 that are in the metal heatsink as well. Again, I already took the liberty of taking them out. So once you get that done, usually your Genesis will also have a metal shield, an RF shield over top of it. I actually took mine off because I completely removed the RF modulator and the output over here to put in the S-Video jack. And realistically, you don't actually need the RF shielding. It doesn't really do anything. It was just something to appease the FCC back in, what was it, 1989? Whatever. I mean, they still do it to this day, but it's not necessary. So you can just go ahead and take that off if you want, or if you want, you can put yours back on. Me, personally, it's gone. So once you have all the screws out, you're going to want to lift this little guy up, because that's the headphone jack. And the power jack here is also just going to lift right out. And we can just kind of set those on their side. And carefully, because the controller ports kind of fit into this plastic here, carefully go ahead and take that. We're going to flip that over. And as you can see, I already have it labeled. You can see I have it labeled down here, the different colors that I marked on the outputs here. This is the DIN 8 connector that's on the back of your Sega Genesis. Now, when you're buying SCART cables, or if you're making SCART cables, there's going to be two kinds of different DIN 8 ports, and there's going to be the C style and the U style. That's just basically the arrangement of the pins. As you can see, this is the Genesis Model 1 has a U style, but however, I'll grab a C style plug here. You can see, like the TurboGrafx controllers, they have a C style where it's actually more rounded. The last two pins on either side are kind of curved in a circle, as opposed to this where they're more in a straight line. So if you're making cables or you're ordering cables or whatever, just keep that in mind. They will fit interchangeably, but it does kind of bend the pins on the cable if you try to do the C style into a U style socket. I guess it will fit. I haven't tried it personally, but you're probably going to end up bending the pins. So, alright. So we have this marked here, and what I'm going to do is run individual wires up through the side. And down here I actually removed a screw post. Again, I'm going to move this down so you can edit this part out. I actually removed this one screw post down here because it's not actually used on top. There's only these three here, and that's 1, 2, and 3. So I moved this little screw post so that way I can kind of put the wires through here underneath so it doesn't pinch up against anything. Again, this is the multi-out, and you can see that I have my composite there, and it's a little messy from when I removed the RF modulator. So you can see I have it marked red, green, blue, and black is actually composite sync, and that's what we're going to be using for this RGB board. So if you want to move, you can wire your wires wherever you would like, but me personally, just going to wire them up to the side there. So I went ahead and made a little bit of a, I wouldn't call it a wire harness, but I stripped some wires, and I'm going to go ahead and connect them now. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and tin not only the tip of your soldering iron, but also the points that you're going to solder to. That's, in my experience, that's the best way to do it, and it gives you a lot better luck, I should say, with actually getting it to stick to the point you're trying to connect to. Alright, so you can see here that I actually looped the little wires around so that way they fit on top of the pins. So we're going to go ahead and connect these guys a while. Alright, once they're all wired up, we're going to go ahead and just kind of carefully bend them and route them around so that way they'll fit through our little section that I cut out here. So, just make sure that they're not, we're going to go ahead, since I used some thin gauge wire for this, I used a little bit thicker for the sync, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that these aren't shorted out or connected to each other accidentally. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and flip this guy around, and we're going to just reseat everything back into where it was here. So we can go ahead and put our power connector back, route the wires, same with the headphone jack, and that should be everything that we need to do underneath. Alright, now that we got the board set back in its place and we got the headphone jack and power jack also set back in place, we can go ahead and I'm going to drill the holes and mount the jacks that I have here. These are little gold-plated jacks. You can get them pretty much anywhere on the internet. And then we're going to wire it up. So first things first, as you can see already, as I showed before, I did kind of measure out exactly where I wanted the holes to go. And that's always a good thing to do. Try to use like a ruler, something like that. I just use a little bit of Sharpie because I can just use some alcohol to wipe that off then. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start these guys. And as anybody knows, it's always good to have a pilot hole before you just dig right in. So I'm going to use these little tiny drill bits I got just to kind of get a small hole started. What I typically like to use is one of these kind of guys. This is called a unibit. It actually has different, let me see if I can get some better light on that. It's got different measurements that you can actually see up through the bit itself. And what we're going to do is, or what I like to do is, good thing to always have is a one of these guys, a micrometer or you know, whatever you want to call it. I like to measure out, well, hold on, zero it first. Measure out exactly what I'm going to need to drill a hole for. So 15/64ths, make it a little bigger, we'll step it up. So about a 1/4 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill 3 1/4 inch holes, and as you can see, there's a small 1/4 inch section right here. So you can also use just standard drill bits, but I just like to use these kind because it's just easier for me anyway. So, I have my little board here, and what we're going to do, if I can get some better light on that, we're going to do is we're going to start wiring this guy up. So the most important thing, obviously, is the video signals from the RGB. So we have an input side, and we have the output side here. So the first thing we're going to do is start just soldering these guys into their appropriate locations. So the next we're going to do is the power. Now this guy actually takes 5 volts and 5 volts only. So I got some, you know, standard AC wiring here where it's just the 2 together. And it's a little bit thicker of a gauge. When you're doing mods like this and you're powering a board, you want to use a thicker gauge wire for the power and ground. I think that goes without saying, however, but not everybody knows, so if you don't know, well, now you know. So what we're going to do here next is I'm actually going to plug this in. There's 2 5-volt regulators, 7805s, coming off right here. And what I'm going to do is find a good spot to pull a 5 volts from. I would like to try to avoid doing it right off the regulator, only because I don't want to over amp or burn out this encoder chip. So I'm going to try and find like a capacitor that's nearby that I can pull just a straight clean 5 volts from and a good ground from. So got my meter here, and put that in the shot so you can see what voltage I'm getting. I'm going to turn it on, and obviously this is ground, so you know what, I'm actually going to just go ahead and pull it off of this regulator here. Considering I have more and my power supplies are pretty good, I'm just going to go ahead and solder the ground probably to the shielding area here, and then solder the VCC to the actual end of the regulator here. So I'm going to go ahead and wire this around, and I'm going to snip these a little bit shorter, and we're going to get it all wired up. Alright, so now that we got the power wired up, I'm actually going to go ahead and take these 2 screws that screw into the base, and I'm going to just go ahead and put those in a while so I don't forget about them later. And just to make sure that I don't have any wires that are going to be going right over top of them, or something like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and put these 2 guys back in here. Alright, so appears we got everything wired up. I'm just going to move these wires a little bit out of the way here. Probably should trim those wires, but this is just for me. This isn't for like a customer or anything, so I'm not going to go too crazy. I'm just trying to get it done. So, get some of my tools out of my way. Last thing to do really is actually to go ahead and wire up the outputs to the jacks back here. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, now that we got everything soldered into place here, and everything kind of just situated, what we're going to do before we screw anything back together or anything like that, we're going to just flip it over, plug it in, and see if it works. Alright, and so now I got everything screwed back together, and I've even attached my Model 1 Sega CD. You'll see later in another video a tutorial, I guess you could call it, of how I added a region-free BIOS to this particular unit. The Model 1s have a socketed EEPROM that you can easily remove and reprogram, so that will be in a later video. So for right now, we're just going to test it out and see how the component video looks. See if you guys can tell the difference between standard composite. I'm not going to have any comparison shots. It's just going to be a little bit of a demonstration of what the component looks like. So Alright guys, so we got everything hooked up, we tested it, it works, it looks fantastic. It's hard to show over the camera, you know, just how good the component signal looks. Of course, RGB is going to be better, but unfortunately I don't have a monitor right now that supports RGB. I'm hoping to get a PVM fairly soon. We got the component mod done. It looks fantastic, and now that I have the jacks positioned where they're at, I can still fit my power-based converter on here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to test it, and I'm going to enjoy playing some games. So if you guys have any questions on where to get one of the boards that I used, or any kind of question on your modding your Sega Genesis or Sega CD or anything like that, feel free to put them in the comments or send us a message. Again, I'm Luke from Central Pennsylvania Reviews, also known as Retro Tech Rewind. That is my store and business name. If you have anything that needs fixed or modded, feel free to send me a message. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.